Good evening and welcome to episode number 210 of the ZA Tech Show. My name is Simon Dingle. Good to be with you. Let's introduce you to our panel this evening without any further ado, because I'm pretty good at further ados. Sam Beck-Bessinger is here from Quirk.
Hello, Mr. Dingle.
The lovely Miss Beck-Bessinger. It's good to have you back in the studio.
Thank you. It's always good to be here.
Yes. Brett Haggard is here from Hypertext Media Communications.
The lovely Brett Haggard.
The lovely Brett Haggard. Who's not very talkative this evening.
No, I'm not. I'm just like absolutely enthralled.
Are
by
those
the
special
awesomeness.
gloves that accommodate touchscreens?
These are my special touch gloves.
Brett in full winter attire
Indeed, it is
is
cold.
Such a
operating a
nerd.
Galaxy
Such a
Fisher
nerd.
Price My First tablet.
Yes, I am operating a Fisher Price.
It's a
Life
first
tablet.
generation Galaxy Tab.
But there's awesomeness happening on this tablet, so it's okay.
Yeah, you've got a new app you want to tell us about. But before
Yes,
you do,
indeed.
let's introduce Mr. Arthur Goldstuck from Worldwide Works.
Good evening, listeners.
How are you doing, Arthur? I'm
And,
sorry about locking you out of our studio when you arrived.
I can understand, you know, when
We-
when your team, which
You
I'll go and
didn't
mention,
have
has
to
done what
lock
your team
him
has done,
out.
everyone
Sorry.
wants to lock you out. So
I had to just do it.
So, I do understand. I had this to keep me warm. So
There's something about football happening this week. I don't know.
Oh, look, it's amazing though. It's not a plastic one, so that's quite nice. Not a
it was-
plastic scarf.
All right, let's not talk about football.
No, it was actually a religious happening. It wasn't football, so we won't talk about that because I know the show's not about religion.
All right, Arthur. Do you want to say just one small thing about the football? We have to indulge you that little bit since you've dressed up and everything.
Well, let's just put it to you this way: for any Chelsea fan anywhere in the world, it was a religious experience.
Okay. Now,
Ve-
Brett,
It's about freaking time.
Yeah.
one of the things we allow people to do on the show is punt their own stuff.
Yes.
Because God knows we don't pay them.
No,
So-
God, no.
Tell us about
Tell me about it. Jeez.
tell us
I had-
about your app that you've launched for Fisher Price tablets.
It's not just Fisher Price tablets. It's all Android devices. And it's something
Sorry,
we-
man, I keep confusing that Galaxy Tab.
No, look, it is a bit Fisher Pricey.
Is that
The
original Galaxy
reason
Tab?
I am
It is
actually
the original
demoing
Galaxy
this
Tab. They
application
sold at least
on,
one, Arthur.
on an original
some.
Galaxy Tab. No, well, it wasn't this one because this one was sent on review. The reason I'm demoing it on this device
Yes.
is because I'm trying to prove that it works on all devices, even old thick ones.
Okay, well done. You proved it. Now tell us about that.
Okay. So it's something we've been working on for a couple of months now called the Daily 5. And you can find it at daily5.tv.
Yeah.
Right now it's only available for Android devices, but there is a new platform that we'll be launching on in the next couple of weeks.
So is it in the Android App Store?
It's not in the Android App Store. It's available from our website. So you
Okay.
can go and download the APK from our website. You obviously need to tick that little box on your Android device to say allow for third-party
Right.
applications to be installed or non-store applications to be installed.
Okay.
It's a box that says goodbye privacy.
Indeed. It is in for submission in the Samsung App Store at the moment. All right.
Right.
We're waiting for them to approve it. It should be very, very soon.
Okay.
We're hoping in the next couple of weeks it'll be available there too. And then, like I said, there's this very exciting new platform that we will be launching on in the next couple of weeks. I'll give you 3 guesses as to which that is. And then we also have an iOS version in development.
Okay. Cool. Well done. Where do people get it?
Daily5.tv.
Nice.
What they get in the application we think is kind of cool. So one of the hassles we've gone through in our office is the fact that in order to keep abreast of what's going on in the technology industry and stuff that is of relevance to the South African market is you've got to hit a lot of websites. And a lot of those websites are covering exactly the same stories.
Which is why Sam is frantically Googling things 5 minutes before ZA
Yes.
Tech Show every Monday.
Right.
So we've decided this human-coded aggregation, or a journalist watching the wires and writing the stories, almost repurposing content, but at the same time giving you a very, very short, sharp overview of what's going on in the industry,
All right.
almost cherry picking and copy pasting those stories that are breaking out there. Specifically looking at stuff that have local relevance, though. So
Okay.
the one thing you're not going to see initially from the application is anything to do with stuff like Netflix and Hulu and BBC iPlayer, because those products aren't available in South Africa.
Okay.
The strategy is to go very international with it, but in the interim, it's going to have South African relevance. 3 kinds of stories you can get right now, or 3 categories of story you can get via the Daily 5. The first is a post that we're going to upload every single morning
All right.
called the Daily 5. And we figured out that people are pretty mad about lists. So every morning we're going to put a list up of 5 cool things. So
Okay.
today's one, for example, is 5 ways to store stuff online. And here we talk about Dropbox, Google Drive, SugarSync, SkyDrive, SpiderOak. All
Okay,
right?
cool.
And that's going to be a post that gets uploaded every single morning, as and when news breaks throughout the course of the day, or we get around to actually reviewing some of the kit we've got. We'll pop that into the other 2 categories, namely news and reviews. The whole value proposition is there's so much going on the net at the moment that's tech-related and consumer tech-related. We just want to tell you about what, in our opinion, are the 5 most important things that happened. So we guarantee 5 updates a day.
Okay, cool. Sounds awesome.
Really, really simple, easy to understand news. Published every day to your
Cool.
Android device. Very soon to be on iOS and in other platforms.
So, daily5.tv.
Congratulations.
Indeed.
Well done,
Thank you very
Brett.
much.
Congrats.
So, I just want to say it's kind of in beta at the moment. This is the first remotely stable version of the application we've produced. So I want to encourage people to go download it and play with it.
Cool.
If they want to give us some feedback at daily5.tv,
All right.
and let us know what you think.
Nice. So something that's far from stable is Diablo 3, which was the big technology launch this week. My favorite tweet came from Andre van der Schuyf, my friend Andre, who said, "I'm busy enjoying Diablo 3. Oh, wait, no, I'm not."
That's great.
What's the error? Error 30? I don't know. I haven't had a chance to play since beta, but that was the beginning of the hell for Diablo players, was errors and
I
not
see
being
what
able
you
to
did
log
there,
in.
The whole hell. Oh, that's very smart, Si.
Yeah. Stick around. There's more where that came from, Brett. But then today, the story breaking of Diablo 3 accounts being hacked, gold stolen, virtual goods stolen, which is pretty serious now that you can actually sell them for real money.
But can you
Yeah.
imagine going to, I don't know, the Braamfontein police station and walking up to the counter and saying, "I want to report a theft.
Yes.
My pixels of armor were stolen and I'm very upset."
So Toby Shapshak's got a fantastic story about
love
where
this,
somebody
yeah.
was tapping into his ADSL line and he
Yeah.
had to go and open a case with the police, and he was trying to explain to them that somebody stole his broadband. And
I'd like to report my megabytes.
they're
missing.
like, so somebody came into your house and took the internet. They didn't understand.
no, it was. Never mind.
I would say so my favorite story about Diablo 3 so far is that there is a French company where if you are a female whose boyfriend has recently bought
There are
a
a lot of
copy of
those
Diablo,
around.
yeah, plenty. And you take a proof of purchase to one of the distributors, I think it is. They will give you a free vibrator.
Nice.
Love
nice.
it.
You see, that's the kind of incentives that that thinking retailers
Wow.
should be
Is
implementing.
it like
Great
a Diablo
marketing point.
3 themed?
It's the first question I
3
asked.
speeds.
'cause
It's got to
if
have
it
3
is,
speeds. Diablo 3 times the mayhem.
Then I know some geek girls who
No,
would
but that's like
definitely
playing it
go
on a
after.
smartphone and putting it on vibrate mode.
Now, if you bought that copy of Diablo 3 for yourself, did they still give you the vibrator?
It's such a sexist concept. I don't know.
Yeah, it is a terribly
They
sexist.
should totally
Because girls
be
don't
like.
play video games,
There
right?
should be a really limited edition, collector's edition that has a vibrator in it. That'd be fantastic.
But alle grappies op 'n stokkie, which means all jokes aside, if you're not from South Africa, sorry about that.
All jokes on a stick, I think, is. Anyway,
Well, if
never
you
mind.
want the literal translation, let's not do that. Is a lot of people have taken leave this week to
Yeah.
play Diablo 3. And I think if you've taken it off your annual leave and planned a week around it, not being able to log in for a few hours at a time is probably not the best proposition for you. Just thinking.
Well, you could probably have bunked work today, and then as a result of the amount of time you spent staring at a computer screen, report to your doctor in the afternoon to get a note for a
My
headache.
eyes are
Because
bleeding.
yes, indeed, no.
Yeah.
Diablo-induced, eye bleeding thing. I don't know.
Yeah. And it's
But staring at a computer screen for a really long time would give you a headache. I would totally do that.
Look,
Like,
it's gotten slightly better, hasn't it? I mean, launch week obviously was
Yeah, except
disastrous
for
'cause
today
millions of
when
people-
accounts got hacked and they had to take European servers down for a few hours again. Anyway, they'll
predicted-
sort it out.
I predicted last week that there were going to be like server crashes and like really, really bad user experiences.
Look,
haven't
anybody who
been
thought
that
they were
bad.
going to have an uninterrupted week of Diablo 3
Yeah.
this week, I think, was fooling themselves.
Well, of course, the problem is that you can only play it connected. I mean, there's no offline version, so you can't even occupy yourself with
Yeah.
the game, in between.
Absolutely, and that's one of my big criticisms of Diablo 3 is I played the beta, I haven't played the final game, and I really loved it. But I think it's very difficult to defend their online decision. It's nice that you can seamlessly play with other people online, but that was never a major problem, even in Diablo 2. And then this whole authentication with BattleNet makes sense from an anti-piracy perspective and all of that. It's also incredibly convenient for people because you can install it on as many machines as you want,
Yeah.
and wherever you log in, you can play.
But you cannot play
But you
it on
can't
a
play on
plane.
an aeroplane.
Yeah.
Hello.
And well, unless you've got in-flight Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Yes, and Mango doesn't fly intercontinental just yet.
And satellite broadband sucks for games.
Well, there's
anyway.
this funny kind
I
of
think it'd be pretty low.
effect of this, which is that if you look at the Metacritic score, the critics have given it 88% as a score, and the users have given it 4, which is really low. And all of the user reviews are about
Yes.
I'm so grumpy because I couldn't get on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So that's Diablo 3. Not so great this week, but a fantastic title. And I'm looking forward to jumping into it. I enjoyed the beta period. Although you level really quickly in Diablo 3. I think they've taken some of the tricks they learnt over the years with World of Warcraft and they've implemented them there, which is basically almost instant gratification on the leveling front. And I suspect many expansions to come. What else has been happening this week? Vodacom results are out, if anybody cares. Pretty good for investors. They're still sickling in Africa here, Arthur.
Yeah, although an interesting point is that most of their growth has come from Africa, particularly on the voice side.
Yes.
If you look at the breakdown of their results, I think the figure was 87% of their growth comes from data overall, mostly in South Africa, and from growth outside South Africa. So what they tell you before you even start drilling down is that things are flattening fast in the voice area. And when you in fact look at their voice revenue, it's a nice number, 29 billion rand. I'll have some of that.
Yeah.
But the fact is it's gone up by 2.8%. And in a market that's used to those kind of numbers consistently growing rapidly, that means it looks like it's reaching the top of the curve. And along with SMS, that's the most interesting thing of all. SMS still grew around 6%, but year to me is the big number. SMS is just over 3 billion rand in revenue to Vodacom. Data, 7 billion rand
Wow.
in revenue.
That's fascinating. Sure.
Data is now twice the size of SMS in Vodacom, which is the biggest mobile network in South Africa. So clearly, those same kind of trends would be reflected in the other networks. And this means that for the first time, not for the first time really, we've always seen it coming and we've seen the evidence, but now there's clear and irrefutable evidence of the fact that data is now beginning to kill off SMS as a major revenue stream.
Okay.
Very interesting.
So interesting. Still good times for Vodacom investors. And
There's no question about it. In fact, when you look at what they did with the dividend, their headline earnings per share, that means their profit after everybody else takes a cut, was 7 rand 9 cents a share. Their dividends that they're paying out, 7 rand 10 cents a share. In other words, all the spare
dividends
cash they're
up like
bringing in
56%
is
or
going out to
something.
investors.
This is very distracting, Arthur, but I'm going to lift your microphone a little bit so it's closer to your mouth. There we go.
Thank you. Now you
Arthur's
can see my
microphone has been problematic this evening because the cable, if you're watching the video, looks like that. And since it's not plugged into anything and since it doesn't even have a plug connected to it, we had to make a plan.
I've got to talk especially loud,
There
but
we
it's
go.
conspiracy because I'm wearing blue.
So, Vodacom raking it in. No surprises there. Spending a lot on CapEx projected for the next
Yeah,
while, but they
something-
do have a lot of network fixing to be done.
Something like 7 to 8 billion rand spent on capex last year. That's pretty serious investment. I've often heard comments, Vodacom isn't investing in their networks, or the mobile networks generally aren't investing in infrastructure, but they're investing huge amounts.
And it's a very difficult and tricky game to play, balancing your revenues with your capex.
There's
And
no question.
And I mean, the simple thing is that in any developed cellular market, which South Africa is, depending on the geography, but in its big city centers, the biggest network has the biggest problems because of urbanization, density, and things like cell shrinkage and the other anomalies that happen with cellular infrastructure. And so, not to defend them, because some people really do have a terrible experience on the Vodacom network, but it's very tricky to, on the one hand, keep the money streaming in, and on the other one, pay amounts like 7 or 8 billion rand a year to keep a network updated.
The good news is that Peter Race has hinted that they're going to plow some of those huge profits back into pricing. So I think we're going to see the price war continue. I think we should mention that as well.
Yeah.
Cell C is
announcement last week, because there's a lot of implications lurking beneath that. announcement.
And Vodacom have now been told to pull their advertising for their kind of comeback 99 cents rate, which obviously was done in a massive panic because they didn't go through ICASA.
They pulled back on that on Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
In fact, they announced that they made a mistake. It's not a new rate, which is what ICASA would have to approve, but it's promotional pricing,
Yeah.
which ICASA doesn't have to approve. But suddenly the ads that appeared on Sunday were a little confusing, because everyone was expecting them to match Cell C's advertising with a big 99 in the ad. That's just fully expected. What wasn't expected was a bit of a confusing ad from Vodacom about how, if you look at their mix of pricing, you get the lowest cost, or you get free calls at certain times.
Well, that was MTN's response as well, wasn't it? They said, well, we're already cheaper, but only if you read through our really complicated documents
that wasn't
and
going
understand.
to
Just context for
Vodacom's
people who
response.
don't know what
Yeah.
we're talking about is Cell C and Vodacom. Obviously, if you're outside of South Africa, these are two of our big cellular networks in the country. Having a bit of a price war in the prepaid space at 99 South African cents a minute, so call it 13 US cents a minute, about. That should give you some indication of how badly we get ripped off in South Africa for this stuff, when that's considered as special.
Here are the implications of that announcement. Firstly, it's Alan Knott Craig's first real firing across the bows of the competition. He said when he was appointed that
Said he would.
he intended to shake up the market, and he intended to do something about excessive pricing. And everyone's been waiting for it. He took over on the 1st of April, and in the second week of May, he suddenly announced prepaid contracts, 99 cents, regardless of the network, regardless of the time of day.
Yeah.
And it's so straightforward. It's staggering that no one has ever done it before. And it's actually what the market has been crying for, not just lower prices, but absolute simplicity
And transparency,
in the
yeah.
pricing.
Which is interesting, coming from Alan Knott Craig, who's the king of complexity, because
For sure. he invented it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my comment in one of the newspapers was that he's starting to redress the ills that he helped create, because he set up that structure that included, or he helped set up the structure that included R1.25 interconnect fee in every call between networks. That now has shifted dramatically. Now the interconnect fee is down to 56 cents, and that's the basis on which he has brought down that price.
Yeah.
And he has said that Cell C is preempting the next drop, which is down to 40 cents, but he is going to argue with and urge the regulator to drop it down to 25 cents, which coincidentally is where it was when he and MTN got together. Well, Vodacom and MTN got together. I think, was it Finweek or Financial Mail, that has a very detailed exposition of what went down in London in a meeting between them, where they decided to have the interconnect fee pushed up to R1.25. So to bring it back to 25 cents is to bring it back to where it was in the beginning of the cell phone industry, and that's where it belongs. And in that context, you can actually see prices coming down further to even around 70 cents, 75 cents a call.
I've been trying to get my head around why Alan Knott Craig agreed to take the helm at Cell C. He started Vodacom, which is South Africa's biggest network. He's made more than enough money. He's proven himself. One of the reasons why he left Vodacom was health concerns, and you don't want to mess with that stuff. And I just couldn't understand why on earth he took the job at Cell C. and maybe wanting to fix some of the things he broke is the reason. Who knows?
It could
Anyway.
well be. I don't want to read Alan's mind,
No, of course not.
but
It's not
that
fair.
could well be.
Let him explain
one
it,
of the
but-
reasons. He may well have been bored as well, because that was an incredible challenge waiting for someone to take up.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
when you're somebody like that, who's used to working at the kind of pace that he was in that, I don't think that early retirement sits well with you.
Absolutely.
Anyway, moving on to listings of another kind, I'm quite fascinated at what's happening around the Facebook IPO. It's tanking, basically.
Already.
And so I'll tell you what I thought was going to happen, right? Firstly, I'm one of the people who thinks that there definitely is a bubble in the social network, or in the technology space in general.
Big time.
And the
1 billion for Instagram.
exactly, and the way that you know something is a bubble is because there's enough people saying it isn't. And the only way bubbles can happen is when you see ridiculous valuations on companies on one hand, while on the other hand everybody insists it isn't a bubble, because you can't create a bubble if you see it happening. And so what I thought would happen was that Facebook would list, and because it's Morgan Stanley doing the listing, and because it needs to get rich along with its friends, basically the way these big firms work is they rip off the client who's listing to make sure that they make as much money as possible. I thought because they're so clever at ripping off companies like Facebook, and because there is such perceived value, and because the supply and demand equation was just looking fantastic for Facebook. They were issuing 300 million shares, and you could easily see demand for 1 billion shares. Everybody was going to try and load up on Facebook shares. I thought that we'd see a massive spike in the short term, like we did with LinkedIn. I thought we'd see them, go to ridiculous value on the share price, and then that would kind of taper off, and they would slowly start shedding value. What we've seen instead is that they've listed and just basically dropped since then. 12% today, currently trading at just under $34, and it closed just above its offering price of $38 on Friday. So not looking good for Morgan Stanley, which makes me happy.
I'm going to be contrarian, though.
Okay, what, you, Arthur, contrarian?
No, it's not in my nature, but I feel I have to do a little deeper analysis of the situation here.
Okay.
And there's a few things to bear in mind. One is that Facebook decided just before the listing to push up the price to the $38 level. In fact, just before the listing, they said it's going to come on at between 36 and 38, and they finally decided on 38. But a few weeks before, they were still talking about 28 to 32 dollars. And I think because of the massive demand, they figured, let's cash in, or their promoters figured, let's cash in. The good folk at Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs obviously saw this as a huge opportunity, but I'm sure so did Mark Zuckerberg. So I think it was sheer greed that eventually put the price at $38. And when you saw what happened on Friday, every time the price came down to about that level, there was massive buying up. There was certainly appetite at below $38.
Yes.
Every time it came near to $38, the underwriters were soaking up the pressure. And that was only going to happen on day one. So it was very clear that today the price was going to drop substantially. And I don't think it came as any surprise to anyone who was watching it. And I think the price that it's come to now, it's $34.80 at last count, is pretty much an average of where it's been throughout the day. And the fact that it's been at that level throughout the day and it hasn't tanked further. Firstly, I have to say, I don't think it's tanked. I think it's settled down to a reasonable price. The fact that it hasn't dropped down to that original suggested asking price of $28 tells you that it's actually firmed up at this level. It's certainly dropped significantly from the opening price, but it's still up significantly from where people expected it to be opening a few weeks
But
ago.
that doesn't make for sensationalist headlines, Arthur.
That's
We
the
have to
problem.
say it.
That's the
Tanking,
problem.
it's tanking.
It's a very
Facebook's
very
on
dull,
fire.
It's a dull listing. So
We don't need no
people,
water. Let
People
the
look for sensation to be had
Zuckerberg
out of it.
burn.
There's nothing sensational about
Social
this price.
networking is pedestrian now.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. And that's why I think we're not so much in a bubble. You've got to look at Groupon to see what's happening in terms of what people saw as a bubble.
Yeah,
And,
but I don't. The whole Groupon phenomenon, I just don't understand it. Basically, because their barrier to entry is one brick high. It's anybody can step right over there and come up with local competitors that do a better job, and they have.
Precisely. But that was an example of bubble thinking.
Mm.
Their high was $31. Right now they're trading at $12.15.
And I would wager
And
that that's still too much.
That's still too much. There's no question about it, because it's one of those companies with not too much visible means of support.
Yeah,
And it's when those companies are flying that there's a bubble.
yeah,
Facebook is a company with with 1 billion customers.
yes,
And the scary thing about those billion customers, as opposed to any other company with 1 billion customers, there's Google and there's perhaps Coca-Cola, is the big difference is Facebook knows who every one of those customers is, more or less.
yeah. Although they're having trouble monetizing
Yeah.
at the sort of volumes that people would
No
expect.
question about it. But the point about that is, if they can crack that code, they're going to crack
Yeah.
it big. And that's, I think, what people are obviously speculating on. I don't say it's worth $34 a share,
Yeah.
but it certainly shows a solid demand for the share at that
I
level.
wonder what they're going to do, because their advertising model isn't working.
No, and their revenue, I think it's actually declining, and their revenue per user's
Oh,
flattened
it would.
as
It would.
well. You
It
know,
would.
so
As they grow bigger.
yeah, and they've
Um,
pretty much they can't grow much more in terms of users really. All
Yeah.
of the developed markets that's slowing down now, so it can't
Africa
just be
is the
volume.
next big frontier for Facebook.
Unless China dramatically changes its mind and
Yeah. All right.
Personally, I would want to be the guy putting that share in at $28 and seeing it rise to 34.
Yeah.
I think you have the ability to buoy it up a little bit more, because then there's like upward momentum.
I agree with you.
$38 down to 34. I don't know. I think folks are going to be very cautious, and everybody that bought in on day one are going to be pretty
Yeah.
pissed right now.
I just find it interesting how panicked the whole thing seemed in last minute. I mean, they delayed the listing
Yeah.
by 30 minutes. So, I mean, you'd think something this huge, all of this would have been worked out and settled.
Yeah.
It kind of, something about it seemed a little bit, okay, 34. No, 38. Okay,
Yeah.
38. All right,
Let's
go.
Let's push.
He's
let's
got a
push
wife
for
to
as much
feed
money
now.
as we
You know,
can.
needs to buy her pretty clothes.
Well, now he does. He listed a company and then got paid.
Very clever.
Right. So,
In fact, she's going to owe him money, because he's worth less now than
Yeah.
when she married him.
Clever. Maybe that was the point.
Good word. No, push it up to 38. I'm getting married tomorrow.
what else has there
Well.
been? I'm trying to think of the best next topic. There's been suggestions about HTC and what they're doing in South Africa. The brand is here now. We have spoken about the One X. So HTC used to use a distributor in South Africa. I'm not sure what their distribution model looks like now, but they are setting up a presence locally. They'll probably continue to actually distribute through, Leaf, who was distributing them before. Not a terribly exciting story, though.
I think we can explore that story a little more. Brett and I were at a briefing by James Munn of Qualcomm,
Yes.
demonstrating the Snapdragon processor that's been used in a lot of the smartphones.
Yeah.
And he used the HTC One X to demonstrate it. And to me, the most interesting thing of all was that when John French, the HTC head of sales for Europe, Middle East, and Africa, gave his demo of the HTC One X, he used the same application to demonstrate the HTC One X that James Munn used to demonstrate Snapdragon on the same device, which is the Wi-Fi connection application. And what they showed, what James Munn and his colleague first showed, was how they play a game on the phone itself, and it appears on a big screen, high-definition TV, as if you're playing a TV game, using the phone as a controller with no lag. It was quite incredible. And then John French from HTC showed how you can play a high-definition video that's been stored on the phone, playing it off the phone on a high-def TV, and then going into dual-screen mode while the high-def video is running on the big screen, carrying on with managing his email on the phone.
Wow.
And it was done so seamlessly. I'm sure you can do it with quite a few other devices as well by really messing with the system. But he could do it so seamlessly that I was quite knocked out. That showed me some of the ways that smartphone technology is going.
I think there's definitely that, but I think also the thing for me that, and I asked what standard is this based on, all right? And they were talking about it being something that's inherently supported by Qualcomm, but at the same time, there aren't too many open standards in that. I can see the massive value in all of this, right? And I can see, the ability to carry around any device and have it, shunt the content at a screen wherever you're closest to. It's a fantastic vision. The problem is right now you've got Apple with AirPlay, all right? You've got Intel with its WiDi technology, which is closed. You have to be running specific Intel stuff under the hood to do that. It seems like the same thing's happening inside the smartphone industry. And generally, when things become that polarized and that specific to devices, you end up having an environment that just somehow doesn't take. You want an open standard that I can go and buy a Marantz or a NAD amplifier that's plugged into my high def TV, and no matter what device I happen to be using, what codec it's running, what piece of content it's running, I can chuck it at the device and it'll play.
It's tricky though, because you've got open standards for streaming, not on that level, but things like DLNA. And they're terrible. They are the experience is terrible.
So one of the reasons I still use a dual core Atom, running an NVIDIA chipset on a thin client in my home, and I stream content off of a server, that's somewhere else on my home network, is because there's just no solution that's as elegant as that. You want something that's just now, you want something that's going to work seamlessly. The only thing that works seamlessly is actually right now full-blown computers that are hardwired into a screen, right?
But this is all paving the way, especially on the processor front, for the next step in personal computing, where I'm just carrying around one device and I've got all these screens that connect to it, and keyboards and mice and whatever I need. And I think where this is exciting is if you working at Canonical on Ubuntu for Android. This kind of that's really the future that they're planning for, because the idea with Ubuntu for Android is you install a full-blown Linux distribution, it being Ubuntu for desktops, on a partition on your Android phone, and that you can boot to that as a personal computer on a bigger screen with a keyboard and mouse and whatever at your desk or wherever else. And they launched it in an environment where the processors are powerful, but not quite what you'd want on your desktop. But I think, it's and when you chat to Shuttleworth about this stuff, Mark Shuttleworth, of course, who started Canonical, his thing is camping in the desert, as he calls it, getting just so far ahead of the market and waiting for it to catch up. And I think that it was quite astute of them to kick off the Ubuntu for Android project and start maturing that, so that when we do see whatever comes after these quad-core processors, because they're already, the A5X from Apple and Qualcomm's technology, they're already getting seriously beefy. Then we start to see the next iteration of personal computing where the CPU is in your phone.
That's partly my point. And if I may give Gadget a punt quickly, my column today in gadget.co.za is on how the HTC One X and Snapdragon is pointing the way towards the next big thing, as opposed to being the next big thing. And the point I make is that when Apple announced Siri on the iPhone 4S, so many people went gaga just over what Siri could potentially do, and Siri was going to change the world. It was going to change smartphones. But really, it was just one other feature. It was really a gimmick. But the point is that the more of these gimmicks you start piling on top of each other, the more you start seeing the future emerge. And I'm not talking about the high-end guys like Brett, who can plug in a pocket Franistan into a fire ship off the arm of Orion kind of thing, but rather
thanks, Arthur.
The ordinary user who wants exactly what you were saying, Simon, who wants to be able to take one device and do anything with it. When you look at it from that point of view, what's emerging now and what you can do with that particular phone that is on the market right now, it shows all these little big things, little dramatic gimmicks adding up into a big new future.
Absolutely.
I agree with you, wholeheartedly, and that's actually the point I'm trying to drive home is the barrier right now. I saw this in Intel Labs 4 years ago where they were talking about this stuff. The problem is you can have fantastic processing power on the device, All right. You don't want to be locked into an ecosystem where, depending on what phone you have to have another little extender that's plugged into something else, and then it's going to depend on a whole bunch of other standards and stuff like that. You really want
Nothing like Apple, of course.
no, indeed. I think that they're going horribly wrong. They are. The stuff that's saving them at the moment is fantastic industrial design, and that they've got a fantastic media ecosystem around it. But what's starting to happen is media sellers and stuff like that. That market's expanding in the biggest way. You really want a more open environment at the moment. Look at what people are doing on the net at the moment. They're voting with clicks and with traffic, right? My fear is that if you end up locking something into that same model the way HTC is, so you have to have the HTC phone with the HTC little media extender and running the HTC piece of software, all right? There's a very good chance that soon after that you're going to need to be running the HTC media on that, because there's going to be some or other codec sitting somewhere in between. That's 2 years off the mark. It's 2 years behind the mark if you think about it, because that was Apple's model 2 years ago. But that creates a crappy user experience. I really want, in order for this to work, I've got to be able to walk into a boardroom at any company, open up my laptop, press a button, and it must wirelessly connect to the projector. Right? I've got to go around to somebody's house with my smartphone and go, I want to show you this new video, and flick it at whatever media extender they've got, not worry about having the specific one. And that's what the problem is right
That's
now.
what we're seeing starting to evolve. But right now they're having to use those kind of interfaces to make it work. But those interfaces are going to become smaller and smaller. We saw with Wi-Fi display, that's the Snapdragon technology. We saw with that how tiny the connector is, the adapter. It looks like a little USB
it's like
drive,
or a remote eye, like a remote blaster.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about the size of a remote blaster. Really, really cool.
and I can see that in the next year or two disappearing to nothing.
Absolutely. All right. So, interesting space to watch. Before we do our picks of the week, I think we must mention SpaceX's failed launch this week. Shame.
I felt
Elon-
really
So
bad.
close.
Hey, there was
Yeah.
like, I was following it on Twitter, and there was like, nah, shame, man.
But
Wow,
I mean,
so
this
close.
is to me is fundamental stuff. This is the future of our species we're talking about right here, right? And also the privatization of that. NASA unfortunately doesn't have the kind of budget to send people into space anymore, and so companies like SpaceX are going to have to fill that void, quite literally in some ways. And so Elon Musk, who's an ex-South African, started PayPal, Tesla Motors, and one or two other things. Also known for not being the nicest human being alive, but anyway, that doesn't matter. Has taken this private space race upon himself, just about, and SpaceX so far in the lead in this game that it's not funny. And they were going to launch their first big payload this week. Unfortunately, they had to cancel launch.
Literally at the last second.
Fortunately, in time to save their rocket. One of the engines essentially, didn't fail, but it had a problem. And so now they're aiming for Tuesday this week. So by the time you've heard this podcast, they will have tried again and either been successful or not. So we'll be watching that and wishing them the best of luck. And Godspeed as they go where many payloads have gone before.
Live long and prosper.
But not privately so.
It's exciting that there are still things to be discovered and I don't know, adventured towards.
Oh, geez, so
Just
many
taps
things.
into that thing inside that
But
gets excited.
if you check out techcentral.co.za, they recently ran a story from the Mail and Guardian on Elon Musk that was just brilliantly written, very well researched. So if you want the lowdown on him and where he's from and where he's going and the future he sees for our species, then go and check out that article. It's good fun. All right, shall we do our picks of the week? This is where we choose technology that we want to talk about this week. Might be good, might be bad, but it's usually just because it's interesting. And I think we'll start with Arthur.
I'm
You don't have
speechless.
anything.
Actually, I'm not. I have
As
usual,
the
I
last
have
time you were in
lots.
the studio with me, you picked about 18 things.
Okay. I'll
Let's
pick
see if we can
two
keep
things.
it
Looks at
down
about
to
8 tonight.
12 this week.
First, just to make a back reference quickly, this is the Google phone that I've spoken about on the show before.
Yes.
It's the Huawei Idios phone that changed the Kenyan market briefly. I don't know if it's still changed, but certainly in
It's a remarkable
2011,
story.
It just to recap very quickly, Huawei came from nowhere into the Kenyan smartphone market with this in January 2011. Nokia, of all companies, had between 60 and 80% of the smartphone market in Kenya. They launched this as the Google phone, the Android phone, depending on the market, and the Facebook phone.
Yes.
And they sold it at 6,500 shillings, was it? Which works 6,500 shillings, which works out at about 650 rand, or $65 rather. Sorry, 8,500 shillings, $85, which worked out at that point at about 800 rand. It's now a little bit more. So,
But for that, you get a full-fledged Android device with a camera,
a full Android device, a touchscreen phone with a camera,
Bluetooth and Wi-Fi as well, if I remember.
yes, it's a Wi-Fi hotspot as well.
Yeah.
You can even run the Daily 5 on it. Jeez, that's amazing.
Plus, it came with
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
my it's a
Very
long time
sturdy
ago.
as well, very well
Can
built.
I ask, did you pick the pink one?
No, that's the interesting thing about the phone. I wanted the blue one for unfathomable reasons, and the blue one was sold out. My only choice was the pink one. There was such
Doesn't it
demand
come
for
with-
the phone.
It's quite
no,
a-
the
quite a
one,
hot
you know,
pink.
so the review model I got sent came with a couple of different back face plates. It came with about 3 or 4.
That's because they were
Um,
sucking up to you.
It's
Brett.
like those early
It was
Nokia
It was merchandised like that.
No, it wasn't
It's-
sold that way.
Is it?
Certainly not
Okay.
in Kenya. In Kenya, you could choose one of 4 colors. I think yellow was one of the other
all
colors.
right.
Oh,
Okay.
that's fine.
And now carrying a yellow phone, I think, is quite dangerous. But pink was actually the only choice because the demand had been so high. So that was part of the story, actually, the fact that I could only get a pink phone. But it came with 600 megs of data and the equivalent of $10 airtime, I think it was. So upfront, prepaid, you got this incredible package where the cost of data alone would have virtually paid for the phone.
Nice.
And they instantly took something like 45% of the smartphone market in January with a soft launch. February last year, beginning of February, they had the official launch and they went up to 75% of the smartphone market.
It's
Killed
crazy.
Nokia in the smartphone market.
Wow.
Interestingly, the one smartphone whose market share wasn't really affected was BlackBerry. They were not big, between 5 and 10%, but that didn't change. And that showed that the BlackBerry market was a defined market that wasn't interested in this kind of phone, that specifically aspired to a BlackBerry type phone.
Okay.
And that's so the whole event was quite a fascinating case study in the overall dynamics of the market, not just one phone. They launched that phone in South Africa, but sadly, only on contract, which
Yes.
kind of defeated the whole purpose of a cheap Android phone aimed at the mass market. And the result was they sold less than 1,000 units. So fast forward a year and a bit, and here are 2 phones that tell a story. The one is the new Nokia Asha phone, the top
Yes.
of the range Asha phone, which is essentially Nokia's feature phones using the Symbian S40 operating system.
Yes.
And this is the new range that's going to, Asha means hope in Hindi, and it's going to give Nokia new hope of winning back the empire. It's basically Empire Strikes Back with a new hope.
You can play Angry Birds on
sorry
it.
to mix that
It's
up.
bundled with Angry
Um,
Birds, actually. Yeah.
It's got a capacitive touchscreen, 256 colors, which I have to say in this day and age, it feels like black and white.
Yeah.
It's not much more than a green screen, but still, it's got all the apps. It's got WhatsApp front and center when you switch it on, Facebook and Twitter front and center on your home screen when you switch it on. So the thinking is very similar to the thinking with that Google phone, but obviously from a Nokia perspective. So WhatsApp, which is Nokia's answer to BBM, although they don't own it, is all up there. So when you look at it and you think of it as a cheap feature phone, it's actually a fantastic phone. The thing that impressed me the most about it so far is the battery life. I've had it running without recharge for about 5 days now. I've hardly used it though, so that's on standby. And standby time is apparently quite phenomenal. Talk time, active talk time, they promise around 8 hours, which puts to shame most smartphones on the market. The problem is it's not a smartphone. The other problem is the price at which it's coming in. It looks like around 1,600 Rand. And for 1,600 rand, someone's going to say, wait a minute, the BlackBerry Curve is 1,800 rand.
Yeah.
So I think the pricing may just be the Achilles heel of the Nokia. If they could bring this in at under 1,000 rand, seems unlikely.
Yeah.
That could be the killer phone at the low end. But I also want to then show a phone that I wasn't sent for review, that was bought in a Pick and Pay for
You told me about this.
a grand total of 50 rand. This is a ZTE green screen feature phone. Never mind just a feature phone.
That's amazing.
I haven't seen a green screen on a phone.
So it does
in many
SMS
years.
and
Feature
calls,
phone.
basically.
SMS and calls. And wait, I have to add
$50 though is call it
Less than-
$8.50.
Yeah, it's
it also has, if you can see that, FM radio,
Mm.
which is one of the biggest demands for a feature phone in the mass market.
and it'll work on any network because
But
Yeah.
here's
It'll
the
be
beauty
unlocked.
of it. For 50 rand, you can barely buy an FM radio.
Yeah, that's true.
You
Actually,
get
good
a-
point.
It's
yeah.
And you
fantastic.
get
Yeah.
you get a starter pack with this, which includes free calls over the weekend if you top up and use during the week, every week. And I think you get a certain number of free SMSs as well. So just the added extras are already worth more than the phone. To me, this is the equivalent, or has the potential to be the equivalent in the prepaid market and the mass market for feature phones, for basic feature phones, to what the Google phone or the Huawei Idios
Yeah.
was in Kenya.
Plus, it does something that no Android or iPhone device or BlackBerry can give you, and that's a battery life in excess of 3 days.
Exactly. Exactly. In fact, the battery life is probably a couple of weeks if you don't use it too regularly.
All right. So
So to me, so my picks of the week are the Nokia Asha,
yeah.
the 330, but I'm distressed by the pricing, and then the 50 rand ZTE phone from MTN,
Cool.
which is probably the most low-tech pick of the week we've ever had in the ZA Tech
Yeah.
They're like
Yeah.
calculators. not
Toby
feature
picked
phones.
rugby
Yeah.
one
But it's
week.
great.
So.
He
Yeah.
picked Aki Anastasio.
Aki's pretty high
Buravo's
tech.
Pretty
one.
high tech, yeah.
I think he picked Buravo's once.
But have you seen the Toby 3.0?
No.
That's the new Toby. That's
Oh.
New better Toby.
Has he dyed
Yeah.
his hair?
He's at least 3 times better.
no, that comes with even better advice on what technology not to use.
All right. Brett Haggard, what's your pick?
My pick
And
of
it
the
better
week.
not be your own app.
No, it's not. But you should totally download it because it's awesome. I'm kidding. No, I'm not kidding. It is very good. But my pick of the week is a little application, an extension for the Mac OS Finder called Total Finder.
Okay.
Total Finder will run for free for 2 weeks on your machine, so go and test it out. But if you want to buy it, it's $155, which I think is a little steepish, $18 US, but I think it has to do with the rand being in the toilet at the moment, the US dollar. Essentially, what Total Finder does is like a whole bunch of extensions to your macOS Finder. So you've got tabs now. You've got tab-based like browsing, but for your Finder, which is very, very useful. If you work in different folders a lot of the time, it's really, really useful having these tabs inside your
Okay.
Finder. It's also got a dual screen mode. You hit Apple U, and what it does is it splits your Finder down the middle, kind of tiles these two panes next to each other, which makes for fantastically easy file copying and stuff like that. And then just a whole bunch of shortcuts that let you like show and hide hidden files, and just get to a whole bunch of things that are normally buried quite heavily inside the system menus. So yeah, really, really fun. You can use cut and paste very, very easily, natively inside it using the tabbed stuff.
Okay.
Also system-wide Finder, so like you click one button and you can search your entire, your time machine. It just, puts all the files in like one place as opposed to you having to use Spotlight or whatever the case is. I've been moving a lot of stuff around lately. I've been recategorizing stuff. So I for example keep it open on my MacBook hard drive. I keep it open inside my work folder. I keep it open inside my Dropbox folder. And it's really nice to just have these pinned nice and unobtrusively to the top of your
Okay.
Finder window. So there you
Cool.
go, Total Finder. You can find it at totalfinder.binaryage.com.
Cool.
Very rad app.
Sounds very
Sam
handy.
Beck Messenger.
So I'm going to do something very uncharacteristic, and I'm going to pick an extremely girly app because someone's got to on the show. So it's called the Style Book. It's an app for the iPhone. I love it not because I'm a fashionista by any stretch of the imagination, but because I'm an organization geek. So what you do is you catalog your entire wardrobe, take pictures of all your clothes. It removes the backgrounds. You can sort them into, those are the summer dresses. I know this means nothing to you guys, but I promise you
I
this
don't
is
know.
super
I'm
handy.
totally buying into it. I think it's fantastic.
Dude,
Love
then
it.
what you can do is you can sort them
He's
into.
not joking. It's a
No,
scam.
no, really.
You actually probably spend
I
more
have
time thinking about
26
clothes than
pairs
I
of
do.
shoes. But anyway, carry on.
Anyway, you can put in
Pretzel
your
in
shoes,
case
put in your
nobody
shoes. Then what you do is you create these magazine-style collages of various looks of things that work
Oh,
well together.
Lord.
So you don't have
Awesome.
to think about it in the morning when you're really sleepy like me. And the other thing which I really love is that it keeps
hipster,
track.
like the hipster look and the whatever. You can
Totally,
kind of,
this is
loving
the.
it.
Yeah. Anyway, so
I feel like a cowboy today.
I know it's really really uncharacteristically girly, but and then
You can just
what
store all of the YMCA characters.
I feel like a biker today. Trucker.
My favorite part of it is that it can keep track of what you wear every day. So it can tell you what the most worn and least worn items you own are.
That's
So you can
quite
just
cool.
toss out everything that you don't wear after 3 months, in theory, which I think would be
Can it
incredibly
also like
useful.
figure out what is in the laundry at the moment? Because that would be pretty rad.
That
If
would be
I-
cool.
If I could like haul out my iPad from bed
Yeah.
and like figure out what I want to wear based on what I have available at my
In-
disposal, that would completely
You could probably,
rock.
because you can add custom tags, so you could totally
Feature
do that.
request coming.
Yeah, so it's, yeah, I'm quite a
Goodness
fan.
gracious. All
It's
right.
very girly, but that's my pick of
Nice.
the week.
Love it.
I'm going to pick something that's very girly as well, because I'm busy driving the new Mini Roadster. And actually, I'm having an absolute ball with it. It's fantastic. It goes really fast. It's got a cute little fin that comes up at the back, like a Porsche.
Like a
it's got a decent
Not
enough.
at all like a Porsche.
The roof comes. It's cool. I'm actually, I'm really enjoying the Mini Roadster. It's way overpriced, but it's one of the most. It's the most fun I've had in a car for a long time. But what I'm picking really is Mini Connect, which has been around for a
awesome.
while, and this is software that runs on your Mini, but they've got apps for smartphones as well. So if I open Mini Connected now on my iPhone, it brings up the Mini logo, and then I can see the Mini that I'm driving at the moment, some stats on it. So I know that I can still do 400 Ks left with the 30 liters of fuel that I've got, what the mileage reading is. And this is all on the Mini that's parked at Cape Town International Airport right now. But then there's also apps that you can enable via the application. So you can go and you can tell it that you want Twitter on your dashboard, and then the Mini dashboard will start showing tweets. Although
That sounds like a terrible idea.
the implementation is terrible because it's one of those terrible Twitter clients that doesn't show you all 140 characters. So if you want to read a whole tweet, you have to go through the list and click on a tweet. And then, anyway, the idea is cool.
The question is, can you drive the car from your phone?
No, that would be rad, right? If you could.
I'm just going to send the car to pick me up.
Yeah.
Damn it,
So-
I'm tired of giving you directions. Let me hook into your Mini. I'll drive
It's a
you
bit
there.
gimmicky, but it's fun. The only problem is I think Mini Connected is like a 12 grand option. You know, these
Is it?
auto manufacturers are like. Look, that includes the Bluetooth stuff for your phone and all the rest of it, but it's still, I think it's the Mini wired package they call it, and it comes with all of the stuff you need for your phone and Bluetooth and multimedia playback and all of that. So very expensive. But if you're a technology journalist driving a really fun car for a week, that's not costing you anything. It's good fun. And if you're passionate about Mini, and I think it's one of those brands that you either get or you don't, And if you get it, nobody's going to tell you it's too expensive or whatever, because you understand why. And driving the car for a week and having it connected to my smartphone, it's very nerdy. It's kind of cool. The car is a hell of a lot of fun to drive. It's like driving a little go-kart, but
I miss my
It's
Mini
just awesome.
every single day. Seriously, I mean, I had to do something sensible and sell it because I had 2 small children, and it was impossible to get like car seats in and out the back.
well,
of
this is even worse because it's only got 2
it.
seats.
Yeah. So I mean,
But the boot's
I
pretty
loved
big.
it. Yeah,
Boot's
I mean,
surprisingly big.
I'm seriously considering going to a
Oh, dude, you got to drive the Roadster.
A,
This is the John
like a
Cooper
big
Works upgraded.
cross
It's
country one,
so
whatever
much
the
fun.
case is. But there's a very rad 4x4 like off-roady one coming in the next
Countryman.
year or two.
Well,
No,
the
no, there's
Countryman's out for a while.
a full like 4x4 SUV style concept.
Because you get the 4x4 Countryman, which
But,
is very SUV.
No, I hear you, man. They are fantastic cars.
All right. So I think that brings us pretty much to the end of the show this evening.
Yes, one
I must.
other thing that should be mentioned,
Mhm.
perhaps, if I may, which is a historic moment that may not last very long, and I must thank someone on Twitter whose Twitter handle is IamTMashecho, who drew my attention to an article in Mashable just a few minutes ago, which shows that for the first time ever, Google Chrome is responsible for more traffic than any other browser on the internet today, and for the second time ever, IE is not the biggest browser in the world.
Well,
The first time ever was when Netscape was, which was
Was it
more than a
Firefox?
decade ago. But why I say this is a very brief moment is because when IE 10 comes out with Windows 8, it's probably going to rocket above Chrome
I
again.
think so.
And part of the reason Chrome is so big is because of its popularity in South America and India, according to Mashable. IE still kills it in North America. So I think we can expect Windows 8 to restore IE's lead.
Not
in
sure.
that.
You know, if I look at the companies I'm involved with in our analytics on browsers, Chrome is number one on Mac and PC, which is quite interesting.
That's very interesting.
I don't know.
Um,
We have analytics for a lot of very broad-based sort of macro type organizations, and it's still very far away from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I
Our
suppose
nerdy
it depends
sites,
on which
yes.
spectrum you're.
Our nerdy sites,
yeah.
yes.
Which is all that matters.
Yeah.
All right.
What's
So
wrong with YouTube in this building?
you're not. And I don't want to talk
You're
about it
also
'cause it
looking
makes me sad.
for evil things.
No, okay. So I mean, late last second pick just for Sam
Oh,
Beck Messenger.
yay!
Funniest thing I've seen this week. Somebody has created a YouTube clip,
great.
all right, for fans of Game of Thrones,
Yes.
set to Achilles' Last Stand
By Led Zeppelin.
by Led Zeppelin, where Tyrion, the imp, basically for 10 minutes just slaps Joffrey. It's the same clip,
10 minutes.
3-second
That's great.
clip,
So
10-minute
if
long
you-
song, and all he does for 10 minutes to Achilles' Last Stand is slap Joffrey. It's
So
filled
if
with
you
win.
search YouTube for Tyrion or just slap Joffrey, it's actually a massive meme. It's people have created. They've set it to every kind of music you can imagine.
Fantastic. Love it.
Makes me deeply happy.
They managed to keep it real for one season, but I'm so over it now. Anyway. All right, let's wrap up the show. Thanks for being here, Arthur Goldstuck from Worldwide
Thank you,
Works.
Simon Dingle.
Gadget.co.za is where you'll find
At
Arthur's
Art
article.
2G.
Yes, art, as in, is it art or is it
It's like short for
science?
Arthur.
Is it an ism or is
Number
it an
2
art in
and
this
GEE.
case? Thank you,
Art to
Simon
the
Dingle.
G.
Cool.
Yes.
At Bretsky from Hypertext Media
That
Communications,
is I.
creators of the Daily 5 app. Check
Yes,
it out.
indeed.
In
Watch
case
the
you didn't
space.
get that over the
It's
last
killer,
hour.
awesome, Kif Radical. You should totally do it. Don't even think, just download.
And Sam Beck-Bessinger from Quirk.
Guys, it's always fun. Thanks.
Yeah. And I'm Simon Dingle. It has been fun. This was episode number 210 of the ZA Tech Show, recorded on Monday, 21st May 2012. We'll be back next week with a new sponsor on board. That's launching a new product that's quite interesting. So we'll talk about that next week. Until then, keep it real. Goodbye. I just totally signed off with keep it real.
Sorry, I didn't
It's
hear.
terrible.